Good evening. Welcome to the Pearl Report. I'm Diana Lin. About 4,000 cases of domestic abuse between couples are reported annually to the Social Welfare Department in recent years. But experts say that's the tip of the iceberg. Support groups, as well as victims, also say most of the cases revert to the police aren't handled properly. Producer Annie Lau examines domestic violence in Hong Kong and what can be done to better help the victims.
Ying Chan and her future husband both grew up in mainland China.
We met when we attended Primary 1.
He moved to Hong Kong after finishing primary school.
10 years later, he returned once to his mainland village and saw me. He then kept pursuing me. I think it's a kind of fate. Why did we meet after a decade apart?
The couple married in 1992. Ying stayed on the mainland while her husband, who worked in Hong Kong, commuted between the two places. The following year, Ying says she decided to travel abroad, at the behest of friends.
I didn't tell him when I went because I knew he was short-tempered. When he realized I'd gone and he hadn't seen me for a week, when I returned, he beat me with a chair, seriously injuring me. I had bruises all over my arms and legs. I couldn't walk properly.
Over 20 years on, aged 48, Ying is still being abused by her husband.
When I asked for a divorce, he threatened me, saying, "A divorce? You're dreaming. I'd never divorce you. I'd even kill your whole family." I was very scared at the time. After much consideration, I decided to endure it.
She did think of calling the police.
He told me, "After you call the police, I'd go to jail and you'll have nothing to eat." I'm a housewife, so I let it go. He's always been a very hot-tempered and rude person. He doesn't like to reason things out. He only relies on his fists to control you. Of course, I feel very angry. At times, I think I want to kill him. We die together.
Social Welfare Department figures show up to 4,000 spousal or cohabitant abuse cases annually in recent years. Last year, there were 3,321. But research by Professor Edward Chan found nearly 99% of cases go unreported.
For domestic violence case, many people consider this as only private issues. Even for the trained social worker or police, they tend to underestimate some minor form of abuse, especially psychological abuse. So that's why we are losing quite a lot of cases that should be seriously handled.
The Hong Kong Federation of Women's Centers says it received 206 calls in 2015-16, 46% more than in 2014-15.
This is because of the increased awareness of people suffering from domestic violence, and then they realize that they have the right to seek help. I think that's a good sign.
In 2000, Ying, who'd had a son and daughter by then, moved to Hong Kong to join her husband. Mom and kids were often threatened.
He said he wanted to turn on the gas, use a knife to stab us to death.
Ying sought the help of the police 8 times between 2000 and 2016.
They came, registered my identity card, and asked, "Anyone hurt?" No one hurt, so maybe I should refer the case to social welfare staff to follow up. And they left. It's the same every time. I think the police are useless. I want them to arrest my husband, to punish him. But they say he's only guilty when he killed someone.
A verbal threat, say for example, that if you don't do this and that, I will kill you. Then it is a very serious threat. The case should be considered as domestic violence criminal. Maybe when you leave, then the accident will occur. So separation is important.
When tragedy really befalls the family, then you realize the matter is so serious. But it's too late. People have died.
In 2004 in Tin Soi Wai, Kam Suk Ying and her 2 daughters were killed by her husband. He had threatened her. She went to the police station and stayed for more than 2 hours, but the duty officer turned her away. In 2009, the police added a new category, domestic incident. It refers to non-violent incidents without any breach of the peace, such as arguments, harassment, nuisance, etc. The other categories are domestic violence, crime, involving murder, manslaughter, wounding, serious assault, rape, etc., and domestic violence miscellaneous. That's common assault in cases involving a breach of the peace. The Federation of Women's Centres thinks the police are wrong to classify Ying's case as domestic incident.
She told the police her husband wanted to stab her to death or to harm her. That definitely should not be domestic incident. He should be arrested because it's a very serious threat.
Police figures last year showed 85% of domestic conflicts were classified as domestic incidents.
It will only make the data look better and create a perception that domestic violence has been declining, because they will just put domestic violence into family incidents. This is just merely a wrong perception.
To think that family issues is like private, that the police shouldn't be involved, I won't say that is a correct mentality. The police officers should treat the case seriously, because that could be life and death situation for domestic violence cases.
The police said,
police have formulated a set of policies and procedures for effective handling of domestic violence cases, with a view to reducing domestic violence and strengthening protection for victims. Police also have clear professional guidelines for the classification and handling of such cases. Irrespective of the classification of a case, police officers will handle and investigate it with sympathy and understanding, as well as in a professional, fair and impartial manner. Timely referral will also be made as appropriate.
Mei Yao, a friend of Ying's, came from Indonesia to get married here in 1991.
Someone introduced me to him and I came here to marry this man. Because my parents died when I was very little, I was very poor, so I hoped to have a better life here. At the start of the marriage, he beat and slapped me, so I called the police. The police asked if I needed my wounds checked and if I wanted to report him.
Police officers have a duty. If they come to a scene, they should investigate and try to understand whether crime has actually happened. They should use their judgment to decide whether they should prosecute. It shouldn't be the victim's decision. It is very difficult for them to make such a decision because the veteran that they may have been husbands and wives for many, many years.
As a guideline for police, the Social Welfare Department says,
officers at the scene of domestic violence should never ask the victim if he or she wants to bring a criminal charge against the alleged offender.
Some of our service users also told us that police officers also told them, if you sue your husband, there will be some negative consequences on your children and on your family. This is something that a police officer should never say to a victim of domestic violence.
May told police she didn't want her husband prosecuted.
I was afraid of aggravating the situation because I didn't know what to do.
In 2007, May divorced her husband and moved away with her son and a daughter.
I worked at the time, but I couldn't afford a living cost. Raising 2 children is very costly, and you have to rent a place.
She earned $9,000 a month. Rent was $5,000.
The remainder wasn't enough for transport and food, so we moved back with my ex-husband.
They still jointly own this flat, so May doesn't qualify for compassionate housing.
He often acts crazily at 2 or 3 o'clock, making loud noises, throwing things, and turning up the TV volume. I'm going crazy. All day, whenever I hear noises, I feel very scared. I'm scared he'd take a knife to stab me when I'm asleep.
She's developed insomnia.
I have to wear earplugs and take sleeping pills. I think I sleep for only 3 hours a night.
May earns $16,000 in her job as a chef, but says she can't afford to move out yet.
On shelter homes at the moment is not enough. The usage has been over 100%. I think the SWD can put into more resources. We need more shelter home and space for both men and women when they seek for help.
Coming up after the break, domestic violence, a trauma for the kids.
My son cried. When I cried, he cries, holding me tight.
Why do husbands beat their wives?
Maybe I have to use violence in a conflict to make her remember and not to suspect me.
Stay with us.
Welcome back to the Pearl Report. Domestic violence can be traumatic for women as well as their children who witness it. But experts lament the lack of local support for the kids and the reluctance of perpetrators of abuse to get help from violence prevention schemes. Annie Lau has more.
May Chan, a mainlander, divorced her Hong Kong husband in 2011. She was pregnant with their daughter. They also have a son.
Why did I finally get a divorce? I couldn't endure it. It was a living hell. I'd rather work than go home. Because you didn't know, coming back, what excuse he'd find to scold you.
Son Peter grew up with his parents' fights.
We usually quarreled in the wee hours. My son couldn't sleep. Sometimes I didn't want to quarrel with him and asked him to quiet down. He thought I was scared of him and became even angrier. He didn't care our son had to attend school the next day. My son cried, I cried, he also cried, held me and cried. I felt sorry for my son.
Social research studies show that approximately 1 in every 10 respondents had witnessed physical violence in their family, and 1/3 witnessed verbal violence. So I think the situation worth notice because it is rather a common issue that exists in Hong Kong.
Until 2011, May was on a two-way permit that she had to go back to the mainland to renew every 3 months, leaving her son in Hong Kong.
Every time I returned to my hometown, he would ask me repeatedly, "Dad scolded you, will you still come back?"
Children witness violence have fear of themselves or fear of the safety of the mother, and they have low self-esteem, and they feel very insecure. Sometimes they may have behavioral problems like aggression, and because they do not want to disclose his or her experience to others, they will keep themselves isolated.
When he chats with others, he's scared of looking at their eyes. He is very timid. He's frightened when someone speaks loudly. When he was little, he was very cute and talkative. He was carefree then. When domestic violence occurred more frequently, he talked less.
After her husband beat her in 2011, May went with Peter to a temporary shelter.
The shelter's social worker told me domestic violence impacted kids psychologically and they needed counseling. They played games with the children and assessed their psychological condition.
The counseling stopped when May, Peter, and her newborn daughter left the shelter after 6 months.
If the case don't have any follow-up action, it's difficult for the children to overcome the traumatic experience within just 2 or 3 months.
I want my son to share with me what happens in school or his relationship with friends. He's unwilling to talk. Sometimes adults speak to him, he ignores them. Psychological counseling should be lengthened. Assess the child's condition to see if he's okay before ending it.
Some social workers don't have much awareness about the effect on the domestic violence on children. Even they are not the one who are being abused.
Dr. Leung says children from violent families are unlikely to receive government counseling services unless they are victims of abuse. This Integrated Services Center in Tuen Mun counsels perpetrators of abuse like Ben Lam.
Because my wife ran away from home, I tried to find her social worker and she introduced this program to me.
6 hours of classes in a voluntary program run by the Social Welfare Department. This class is on how to communicate with your partner.
我哋都要明白爭執咧係冇所謂嘅輸贏嘛。我哋有衝突嗰陣時咧，第一樣嘢我哋唔係要去解決個事件，我哋要做嘅就係平復我哋嘅情緒。當我哋都未平復到我哋嘅情緒嗰陣時咧，件事就算點樣傾咧，都解決唔到嘅喎。即係佢點解會離家出走？
都係發生啲口角啊，又係推推撞撞咁樣。
即係頂唔順就走。
我估係啦。一開始咧就。
At first, of course, we had a passionate period. Later, problems surfaced. She began to suspect I was dating another woman. I explained to her she was just a good friend. We were not having an affair as she imagined. But she didn't understand, and we started quarreling.
Then he got physical.
Usually it was just jostling, but the most serious incident was when I carried her and deliberately let go of my hand. She fell on her bottom. It was very painful. Later, I took her to the doctor. He said she needed an X-ray, so it was serious. I think in using words, you might have to speak repeatedly to be effective. But if I took action, it would be faster. Maybe I have to use violence in a conflict to make her remember and not to suspect me.
Quite a lot of abusers, they're actually very traditional men. They want to be respected, they want to manipulate family members, so other members won't challenge their authority. If they believe that the man should be in control, then the very easy way is to use violence.
Ben says he grew up in a violent household.
When I was in primary 1, I saw my father take a knife from the kitchen and try to stab my mother.
He suspected she was having an affair with another man.
Neither dad nor mom sat me down to teach me if you face a similar problem, you shouldn't use violence to resolve it. So maybe to some degree, I'm imitating my parents.
Violence is a learned behavior. Violence can continue from generation to generation unless we provide some intervention to change the attitude. they were very easy to follow their parents' behavior and then use violence again.
Ben's wife had fled with their one-year-old baby.
After I used violence, I felt I still needed to deal with the mess. I need to deal with not using violence all the time. I want to be less hot-tempered. I wanted someone whom I don't know to give me an objective opinion, to tell me what I've neglected to do. For example, a very small thing like calling home punctually. This would give her a sense of security. The class taught some stopgap ways to deal with conflicts, like leaving home for a while until the tension has eased, then start discussing the problem again.
But he doubts he can really change because of a 6-hour program.
It's easy to just listen. They tell you not to quarrel, but in that heated moment, it's hard to control yourself because this is your weakness. You must be motivated to continue attending the classes, and no matter how good the tutor is, you need self-reflection.
The government runs various courses aimed at wife batterers. This one had 127 participants in 2016-17, down from 179 the year before. Another one had 43 in 2016-17 and 62 the year before.
Only a few cases, the batterers will really go to the program. And not to mention that even fewer cases will be completing the whole program. So the whole overall effectiveness is very doubtful.
Hong Kong has only one court-mandated program. No one took it from 2014 to 2016.
It is subject to the judge decision whether he or she want to issue such order. Perhaps it is the attitude of the judge that they themselves cannot be convinced why people need to compulsory take such program. They need more communication to understand why there is a need, and then they will exercise their authority.
We need the whole system to be well coordinated between the court, police, and also the social worker, so that they have a very good monitoring system to make sure that these abusers complete the program to learn anger control behavior, and hopefully in the long run they can build more positive behavior to regain the trust between the couples.
Well, thank you for watching our show. It will be re-aired on Monday, Tuesday and Saturday, as well as online and on mobile apps. Until next time, from the Pearl Report team, good night, good luck and good health.